I was new at school. I didn't know anyone. Everyone had friends. I didn't. It's getting pretty hard, I have to say. The worst thing is, because I didn't know anyone, I always went to the cafeteria alone for the first time. And that happened that day too. I took my food and went to the cafeteria and looked for a place where I could eat in peace, without disturbing anyone, without seeing anyone. But this option, unfortunately, was not available that day. I couldn't eat by myself because the cafeteria was full. So I looked around. I was sitting at the end of the cafeteria. There were only 2 children sitting there. I thought this was the best place for today. I asked if I could sit next to him. They looked at each other and one of them said yes. I immediately realized that we were both identical twins. They seemed fine and introduced themselves as Ale and Tom. We had dinner together and they invited me to hang out with them after school. And at that moment, of course, I thought that at some point I should start hanging out with people and meeting new friends. They gave me their numbers in the afternoon. Tom's message told me that he will be there tonight. I'm hanging out at the old cemetery around 21:00 because it's a great place to relax. The cemetery is about a 10-minute walk from me. I said yes, because it was Friday and we were off tomorrow. So I took my phone and texted him. I'm there just before I left. Tom sent me a message, Yazdi. He asked if I would really come. I answered him and said yes. I'm leaving right now. We were supposed to meet on the street next to the cemetery. It was already dark when we started walking. It was very, very dark. And as I was running, I thought how strange it was to meet 2 children who had just arrived at school. The cemetery at midnight. Anyway, I didn't think about it anymore and went into a small alley next to the cemetery. But there was no one there. I wrote to Tom where they were. He answered me directly and said they were going to the forest next door, because there was a cool lake there. I wrote down the location of this lake and he sent me the location. I liked the situation. I was in the middle of the forest and I called Ale and Tom, because I was quite close to the ground, but there was no answer. And then I heard footsteps. It felt as if someone was quietly creeping around me and following my steps. It sounded very slow and deliberate. I called them and told them not to scare me, but there was no answer. I found this quite strange and decided to run out of the forest again. And then I heard footsteps behind me that wanted to go faster and louder. And before I could react, someone grabbed me by the neck and tried to impress me. In the background, I could hear a familiar voice calling for Martin Pack from Jera. By chance, I managed to escape and save my life. I turned around and saw him with 2 other people following me to the end of the forest. I immediately ran home, of course. I immediately told my parents and they immediately wanted to call the police. But I thought it would be better to take a photo. I thought I had enough evidence because they messaged me. They showed the scratches on my neck to the principal and showed them to the school. My parents wanted to make sure these kids didn't know where we lived that night. I didn't say I knew what it was, but it was a week ago. Then I woke up in the middle of the night because I was cold. I closed my eyes and heard the wind blowing in the room. I opened my eyes. I could see that my window was open. I took my family to the room. I woke my mum up and asked if she had opened my window. She said no, and then I told her I was pretty sure someone else had opened the window. My father woke him up, but then my father said that I was just dreaming and that I should go to sleep now. I got a little excited and ran down the hall to my room, and then I noticed something. Even though I left the door open when I was chasing Mom and Dad, my door was half closed. I slowly ran towards the door and opened the door a little more to see if there was someone behind the door. I had a strange feeling in my stomach, so I did what I wasn't expecting. But there was someone hiding behind my door. I screamed and then ran to my family. When my father took me to my room, my door was closed. I said there were people in my room. I opened the door of my room and we saw someone jumping out of the window. My dad ran outside and opened the door, but it didn't take long because he couldn't find that person. But I was 100% sure they were twins. My dad called the police. I told him everything about the incident in the forest. The police said they couldn't do much. We should lock up all the time, and most importantly, we should install the cameras. I couldn't sleep for many nights after the incident, and nothing happened again after that day. But I should never have trusted these children at my school. You had the opportunity to play a musical instrument, and therefore you had the opportunity to take part in a band or take some kind of crafts and craft classes. It was at that time that I decided to join the band. I must say that I have a very good teacher, but I couldn't attend a few music lessons because of an illness I've been having for a few weeks, and therefore I got a grade worse, but I wanted better and asked my teacher. I just couldn't catch everything. He told me that I could come to practice during lunch breaks and practice in one of the rooms in the basement. Of course, I was very happy. And the next day I ran down the stairs with the people next to me on my lunch break. The saxophone is towards one of the storage rooms. I have to say, it's always a little scary down there because music teachers usually don't have anyone hanging around. The light down there wasn't very good either, but I ran anyway. To the right and left of the corridor, there were rooms that would normally be used as warehouses. I entered one of the rows of rooms and closed the door behind me. I put everything together and prepared in case a teacher came to see what I was doing. But to be honest, I didn't really have such a planned deck. Before practice, I sat down on a chair to play games on my mobile phone, and suddenly it clicked. All the lights went out in an instant. I sat there in the middle of darkness. The only light was my mobile phone. I ran to the light switch, turned it on, but there was no reaction. I opened the door and lit up the screen with my mobile phone. I had an iPhone 3 or something. At that time, these mobile phones did not have strobe lights, so I had to illuminate the screen with my mobile phone. When I alighted on my way, I could see that one of the doors had been opened. Besides, I could hear things from inside. The rooms were drifting. I also heard relatively agitated, exhausted breathing exchanges. Then I saw a large plastic container being pushed out of the room and going straight to the front of the stairs. It seemed to me as if someone wanted to block the stairs with him. At that moment, I turned off the light of my mobile phone and went back into the room. To be honest, I don't know what made me do this, but I was scared, and whoever was there, I hid the ones who didn't want you to come to the stairs. I sat in the room and waited for this to happen. The lights were back on, but it didn't look like the lights were going to be on anytime soon. I couldn't wait and decided to get out and run for the stairs. I stood in the corridor and approached. Then I heard strange noises. Then I ran into the next room and closed the door behind me again. I still didn't know what I was really hiding from, but I had a bad feeling because whoever came into the basement only came out when the lights went out. That's why I stood in this room in pitch darkness. You know that feeling when you walk into the same room with someone. You can't hear or see them, but you can feel their presence. I had this feeling in the dark room. I pressed the home button of my mobile phone to check, and I could see them. There was a figure standing in the corner of the room, almost a meter in front of me. At that moment, I felt as if I didn't see anyone. I heard this person do it, and then I felt someone touch me on the shoulder and squeezed him. I left and went out. The person in the room tried to hold me to the door, but I was faster. I ran upstairs. All the lights were on. Of course, I looked directly at my teacher and told him everything, notified the police. But they couldn't. I can't find anything or anyone. No one knows who this person is and what he was doing. It was an ordinary afternoon at school. I was bored in my seat in history. class, I was secretly texting my friends. It was Friday, and we were thinking about what to do after school today. Later, my friend Annika got the idea to decide to sneak into the school at night. I was skeptical too, but after everyone agreed, I didn't want to be spoiled either, and I agreed. School was over. We all went home, and when it was night, we would meet in the woodland next to the school to plan everything together, and we would run into the garden and go around the fence. We started in front of the school building and walked to the windows of the gym. In the afternoon, one of the windows had been left ajar, as if it had been visible from the inside. Although it was obvious that December was ours, fortunately, no one noticed, and we went out of the window to the gym. My friends came first. I was the last one in, and I was there all the time in the empty, dark gym. But my friends weren't there anymore. They were gone. I thought they just wanted me, and I was scared and ran towards the door leading to the school. It should be said that the gymnasium is connected to the school building. I stood in the middle of the hallway, confused because there was no one in sight. I asked myself, how did everyone disappear so quickly? I ran down the hallway and looked right and left through the classrooms, but there was no sign of my friends. I opened another classroom, and I saw someone there at the window. I got a little closer. I was pretty sure it was George. One of my friends there was looking out. The window was old, I said. What are you doing? And why didn't you wait for me? He turned to me. I really couldn't see. It was so dark. I called two girls at the same time. I heard footsteps at the end of the hallway. I could decipher someone tripping over something in the hallway. I ran in the direction the sounds were coming from. And George, who was 2 grades away, jumped out and shouted in my face. And suddenly 2 girls came up behind me and started laughing. They told me that it was all his plan, and they wanted to scare me. My heart was beating like crazy with fear. But when George was a few classes away, it seemed to beat even faster when I realized who the person there was, the other class standing in front of the window. I quietly told him that there was a person in front of me in the classroom. I saw that. I thought it was George. I ran to the classroom with my friends, but the person I had seen before was no longer there, and at the same time we could hear Annika sobbing. I looked over here, and he was looking at a crack in the wall, and then we saw him. And we could see that someone was standing behind the wall and watching us through the crack. George let's get out of here in a panic. We all ran back. It was the gym or the window together. My bad luck was that I was the last person to go out. I was so scared that someone would grab me by the leg, but how am I going to get out? To this day, we do not know who this person is, how this person got in, and most importantly, what he plans to do. Why would a person stand in a classroom in an empty school in the middle of the night, look out the window and say hello to friends?